Okay, if you can just say that again.
People tend to think of the icon tradition as very static and compare that to the so-called creativity of modern art and where the artists can do what they want. But I find it completely the opposite. For one thing, because the icon tradition is aiming to express sublime things, you're not limited to one's own limited spiritual vision. You're sort of, within that holy tradition, you're being opened up to realms you just are beyond one's own limited experience. So the wall's a bit narrower, but the ceiling is much higher. You know, the variety is more in depth than in breadth. And also you're not there to promote yourself. I never sign anything. You're there to express divine things. So creativity in the modern sense is just completely irrelevant because you're expressing divine things and you're a servant. But of course, every person is different, every artist is different, so just naturally you end up developing your own style, but not because you try to, it's just, you know, you've got your own accent, as it were. If there is creativity, of course, but that's more how best to serve the particular place you're painting it for. Like, I had to use my creativity here designing this, but it's within the context of the tradition. So, in fact, it is a very, I suppose you could say it's original in the original sense of the term, that you're going back to the origin of things, you know what I mean? You're relating that to God, who's the origin of all things, so it's original, a good one anyway, should be original in that sense. Not because you're different from everything else, but you're getting closer to the divine origin. Because the divine origin is infinite, there's infinite variety. So I think as long as the centre is not oneself, but the Christ and whatever the subject of the painting is, then you just relax into that. You know, so the fact is that it's going to have Aidan Hart's mark on it, but that's sort of, it's not the aim, it's just a natural result. But yeah, it's a state of prayer as well, because in the painting of this, probably about 1,000 little decisions have been made. You know, what colour, how many layers, what pose. And if you've got the music of heaven in your soul through living the life of the church, then those decisions are hopefully more likely to be informed and in tune with that heavenly music. See what I mean? So I'm not composing from scratch, I'm just sort of listening to the heavenly music, the heavenly worship, and trying to reflect that in what I do. So, but like a portrait, you can tell a portrait that's done by a photograph and a portrait that's done from real life. The one done from a photograph has got a certain stiffness to it because it doesn't come out of a living relationship with the sitter. Whereas if the sitter's there, you sort of will naturally know what to emphasise, what to leave out. So you can get really good technical painters, who might be even atheists, and they can make good copies, but you just feel there's something, it's all by hearsay, not lived experience. And especially if you've got an unusual commission, you know, this is an unusual shape for the Transfiguration. Normally they're portrait, not landscape. So unless you live the life in the church, you wouldn't be able to design something that accords with the life of God in the church, because you don't experience it, you don't know how to design it. So particularly in designing, I think, apart from the technical aspect of painting, you've got to know your theology, not just in the academic sense, but you know, have a sense of balance, for one thing, of joy and sorrow, of compassion, of peace, and because you want to create an atmosphere conducive to prayer. And if you haven't got that life of prayer, then you've got no idea what you're trying to achieve and the colour balance or whatever. I mean, I was a novice monk for 12 years, and the last 7 years a hermit. So I've sort of lived that life pretty intensively. And now I'm married now with children. I still try to keep that inner prayer in my heart, the Jesus prayer and things like that going. So yeah, it is really important to sort of have that inner prayer going. And also I want to be aware that because you're depicting divine things, you're always going to fail. So you learn not to get too upset if things don't work out precisely as one had hoped. It's the nature one's depicting the impossible. So you don't get too worked up when things don't go as you planned. Sometimes the better because they don't go as one planned. So I found that's important, not to be egotistical in the sense that one gets so upset if things don't quite work out perfectly that you think the whole world depends on this technical perfection, which it doesn't. So one's weaknesses and foibles, just become not essential to the part of it, and that's fine. One thing I recognised in orthodoxy was that union of the material and the spiritual, that you've got to have this inner aesthetic life, and that actually assists the outer life, in this case the art. So I think that's something that's become easier as I got older. I mean, I'm not just as energetic, but I'm not so sort of inwardly frantic as I might have been when I was younger. I think another thing I've learned is to be true to yourself, not in the modern sort of secular way, but I think a lot of the mistakes I made in terms of decision making was doing what seemed to be right sort of by the book, but just didn't accord with but it just didn't accord with my particular gifts and abilities, So I think I've learned a lot about that. If you want to know God, you've got to know oneself, one's foibles, and the gifts that God has given, and there's no ideal good other than just following the course that accords with one's abilities and weaknesses. So I think that's one thing I've learned. A friend of mine had been talking to his priest about some mistakes he'd made, and the priest said, "Well, what do you expect? You're going to make mistakes. Why are you so surprised?" I thought that stuck in my mind. That sort of humility. You try not to do wrong things, but you do wrong things.
And we're pretty rubbish.
Yeah, pretty rubbish. You just pick yourself up and try again.